Hi. In this first episode, I'm looking for the most inexpensive way to get me some speakers. I'll make sounds like this. Just from a speaker, a bit of electricity, and a bottle cut into halves. I'm going to make an electromechanical drum machine. I'm going to make sounds from the fifth dimension of another universe, just using speakers again and electricity and nails and tins and empty bottles. Enjoy it. I think the best way to start looking for speakers is our weekly yard sale. So let's go there. And indeed, here is my booty of the day from the yard sale. I hope there is at least a speaker in it. They told me it's a skeleton only, this radio, this old one from Tesla. Another good opportunity to get to cheap speakers is our monthly bulk sale. No, not sale, bulk waste day. Our monthly bulk waste day, but today it's this radio, so let's have a look. Oops. All right. Ah, yes. Oh, let me free the speaker from its prison. Oh, I need different tools to do so. Okay, let me get them. Can you see it? No, you can't. Let me put the camera nearer. Over there. Inside. You see the speaker over there. Okay, I need. Let me try this. But at first, soldering some piezo elements, which are going to serve me as contact microphones. I glue the ground wire, to the larger disc, and the signal wire here to the crystal. So let me at first put some solder on the wire here. Here it is. So I haven't done this for a long time, so it doesn't look very professional, but it works. Yes. So then I put some solder here on the edge. Oh, should be enough. And wire and solder the ground wire. Yeah. And now I scratch a little bit away here where the crystal is. Oh, that's will be okay. Enough. And a little bit more, very short only. Yeah, should be enough. Yeah, there is a contact. And now to make the connection safe, I take this, I don't know what it is, nail polish or something like that, as a mechanical. Yes, a mechanical safety. Let it dry, and later on I'll take some adhesive tape above all of this. Well, let's try whether they work. So, at first, this little desk here. Yes. And then this nice little tin. Oh, let me glue it. Not glue. Fix it with this adhesive tape. To the tin. Just makeshift this way is okay. All right, works. All right. And these are the things I'm going to work with at first. There are a couple of speakers, of course, also tins and cans of different sizes. There are aluminium papers from chocolates. There are mainsprings and tension springs. There are little bells and a couple of empty bottles, some of which I'm going to put in pieces of different sizes and shapes. And there are dried chickpeas. There is rice, sugar, and dry pasta. These things are going to serve for a very special kind of sonic experiment. Let me surprise you a bit later in this video. But let's listen to what these contact microphones contribute to our sonic experience. I'm going to record different sounds using the microphones of my Zoom H5 recorder and these do-it-yourself contact microphones at the same time. When I compare the recordings, then I compare the recordings, and let me show you the results without a lot of words now. There are a lot of combinations to test now. 5 speakers, different in size and in make, a lot of cans and tins, bottles, in whole or cut into pieces. All of this put above the speakers, put below the speakers, and if possible, with the speakers inside the tins and cans and bottles. And what's more, it will certainly make a difference if the pots and bottles are empty or filled with diverse sound generating things like nails and other bits. To do these investigations, it needs two precautions: a good plan and a comfortable switch. Let me make the switch at first. I have labeled all the items I'm going to use to keep the overview and not to get lost in the experiments. And as you see, there are also items labeled 12, the children's balloons. I'm going to fill them with water before they get roused by the speakers. And here is the spreadsheet organizing my experiment. But don't worry, I'm not going to show you the hours and hours of experimenting in full, just the most interesting examples and most interesting sonic results, because all of these experiments deliver only the raw sounds, the raw material I'm going to work with. But I encourage you to make experiments of your own. You may perhaps not be aware of it yet, but listening to the sonic differences each of these combinations of certain speakers and certain vessels generate, listening to each of these differences schools our awareness and sensibility for sound. Even these simple things I'm showing here in this first episode of our journey will contribute a lot to developing our sonic consciousness. All right, let's go for some examples now. You will notice that I am using a kind or a third kind of microphone which records the click of the switch only. I do so to be able to do some layering later in this video. I mean, layering the sound from the dynamic microphones, the piezo microphones, and the monstrous microphone recording the click of the switch. Some words about this third microphone, perhaps. This microphone, which looks a bit like a strange submarine. It's a hydrophone to record sounds under the surface of lakes and rivers. I made this DIY hydrophone some years ago, and it has served me more than well all the time. The bottle-like vessel, which contains a dynamic microphone, is completely filled with sunflower oil, because the density of water is higher, of course, than that of air, which would lead to a loss of frequencies as well as a loss of sensitivity. The dense oil in the vessel reduces this loss remarkably. Here, in our actual setup with air around the hydrophone, the oil inside has the opposite effect. The recording is dimmed and the higher frequencies get lost in the recording. I want that kind of switch-click recording. The first recordings show that with item 1, the middle-sized can with a plastic lid, there are certain combinations which deliver the same sounds. I'll continue with only those combinations which show differences, therefore. But at first, 2 examples of these first recordings. I labeled them extra recordings because they belong to the series without any vessel. I put things directly on the speaker in this series.
Extra recording 6. Extra recording 6B. Extra recording 6. Extra recording 6B.
A short side note. Contact microphones don't record sound transported by air, so I cannot record my voice directly into these piezo microphones, but the cans and springs I'm using here, they catch my voice and so the piezo records it. 2 examples, one using a tin box to catch my voice, and the second one using a spring-like thingy from a kitchen tool.
Extra recording 1. Extra recording 6.
All right, I'm going to have a longer recording session with all these things and combinations now, probably a few days. I'm not going to shoot film clips during this time, it would be boring for you. But at the end of this session, I'm going to do some very special experiments, which I will show you again. After that, I am going to show you how I analyze the recorded sounds and what we can do with them in our DSP and other sound processing software. See you in a few days.
Ha! And now, my dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, and all kinds of two-legged consciously speaking mammals, now the first of the 2 promised special experiments.
I put these 2 middle-sized, rather smaller speakers into this tin box. All right. Can you see it? Yeah, I think you can. Yeah. And then I do what every sensible man should do once in his life. Take rice. I'll take rice if I manage to open it. Looks nice, huh? Mm-hmm. And I put it on the speakers, on the hungry speakers, and on the ground of the tin. Wonderful. Looks great. Another one? Well, yes, I think so. What I'm doing here, or what I'm creating layers of things of different density, some having air bubbles between them. The rice is something kind of middle thing between sugar and the rest of the ingredients that I'm going to use here to cover the speakers completely. So this is the first layer. The second layer are these chickpeas. Then a layer of farfalle, or no, at first a layer of penne. Then chickpeas again. Ah, okay. But not that many. Just a thin layer. This one. Okay. Wondering what I should do with the rest. Okay, I put it here. So far. A little bit of farfalle. Oh, that's enough. Nearly too much. And of course, very important, sugar. Sugar. And again, not that much. Oh, that's all right. And now you need, or I need, of course, where are you? Here. This time, can you hear me? So this time two. Hit the camera. So 2 piezos. All right. I'll bury the piezos. One in the layer of penne, and the other one only on top of the sugar. And here I'll put more sugar on it. Quite heap of sugar. Thus, so it doesn't want. So here, that's okay. I want a little bit more sugar on top. All right. Then, of course, I connect the speakers to my high-tech switch and the battery. Let me do so. So in between I have changed the record mode to multi, have plugged the speakers, both the piezos, both piezos in, and have organized the mess of the cables over here. And now I'm going to record the earthquake. You won't hear it now, but you will hear it later when I show you or let you hear the recording from the piezos. All right. I can't help letting several things fall here on the ground. There's no connection to the matter of our video. Anyway. Who is going to clean up? I don't know. Not sure. Yes, that sound is good. Perhaps. And everything again with a lowered gain. Wow, that's it. Special experiment number 2. Can you see me up there? All right, let's go. This balloon is filled with water. Piezo number 1 is attached to the speaker. And piezo number 2, when I find it in my chaos, here it is. And piezo number 2, I'll try to attach to the balloon. All right, and let's try. Let me try. I don't really like these things here, adhesive tapes. They are very practical if you know how to deal with them. Okay, so piezo number 2, piezo number 1. Let's go. I have to adjust the gain, even here. A little bit more on the piezos. Wow, now I'm curious how the recordings from the piezos will sound like. All right, this was special experiment number 2. Not every experiment brings the expected or wanted results. And that's the way I ended with my earthquake experiment. The sounds from throwing things at the pasta, rice, chickpeas, sugar mixture were excellent. They were excitingly superb and served, and still will serve, as great raw material for further design steps. But the earthquake, oh yeah, poor, very poor. Even after some desperate attempts of applying some tricks from the sound designer's magic bag, it didn't get even near to earthquake sounds. The sounds were still nothing else than, well, some speakers under a mess of pasta, rice, peas, and sugar. After thinking about the problem for some time, I realized the following. First, the speakers are too small, too weak, the voltage, 9 volt, well, it's not enough. Second, the material above them is too heavy, or to be more precise, it's too heavily lying upon the speakers, meaning there is no mutual stabilizing, no propping. The whole weight is on the speakers. Third, there is no tension, which belongs to part number 2, aspect number 2, of course. There is no tension which would be released by the compression wave generated by the speakers. With these thoughts in mind, I ventured a second try. I used only a short cardboard pipe filled with different items, first with some pieces of wood, then some nails, then a suspension, then a metal pipe from a gas line, an old one. Then I additionally put some few pieces around the cardboard pipe, then some of the penny. And this time it worked. The sounds are really, well, they are great. You will hear them. They already sound quite a bit like an earthquake, even before processing them further on, and will develop into real great earthquakes after the next steps of sound design magic, which I'm going to show you. And now, at last, indeed, for the processing of all the recorded sounds. Let me tell you how I approach sound design tasks. It depends on what I want to achieve, of course, what kind of sound design work I am doing, but there are 4 steps, the following 4 steps, which I nearly always do. So, step 1. Step 1 is simple, and I think you can take it for granted that while recording, I'll take notes concerning the setup as well as things which I consider remarkable. Each recording gets a setup number, not a recording number. When working with different microphones at the same time, the recordings of each microphone get individual record numbers. So we have a whole setup number and record numbers and notes to all of these. Then step 2, quite a while after recording, ideally a day or 2 later if there is time enough, I listen to what I have recorded and take notes. Again, take notes describing my first impressions as well as my first opinion about how useful and for what the recording is. Yeah, that's the next step. Step number 3, having a look at the spectrum and its development in time, and again, taking notes. And step 4, slowing the recording down with the spectrum analyzer still working, using a granular sound processor so that I don't change the pitch that much and sustain as much as possible the spectral content of the recording. Yes, and the next steps depend on what I have found out in steps 1 to 4 and what I'm going to achieve, what kind of sound design task I'm working on. Let's get practical. I hope that the YouTube algorithm doesn't destroy the details of the sounds too much so that you can follow my steps in real. I take setup H9. It's the big speaker with the cardboard pipe on it. The pipe is empty, but a few small pieces of glass are arranged around the pipe. One piezo element is attached to the speaker, another one is attached to the cardboard pipe. And the dynamic microphones of the head capsule of the Zoom H5 recorder, they are about, let's say, 25 centimeters away from the speaker. Gain is 5 for all three microphones. Let's listen to recording 24, which comes from the piezo attached to the speaker. Well, the recording sounds a bit sounds a bit muffled, but has a good and useful structure, especially the rumble after the initial blast is nice. With the pitch tuned down a bit, well, this recording may serve as a very good starting point for earthquake sounds. Let's listen to recording 25 now. It comes from the piezo attached to the cardboard pipe. Okay, rather nasal sounds, but quite clear and clean recording. Good structure, of course. It's the same sound source, the same goings on which were recorded. So the structure is good as well, as good as part 1, as recording 24. This recording here, 25, may perhaps serve as a layer to recording 24. And, well, let's listen to recording 25 at last. It's the recording via the dynamic microphones. Let's listen to it. No, rather not. It's more like gunshots than earthquakes, but because of the same structure in time, even this recording might be useful as a very, very weak and quite silent layer number 3 to recording 24 and 25. We will see later. All right, let's have a look at the spectra now. We see that there is a prominent peak at 4 kilohertz. Further, we see that the low end at around 125 Hz has the highest amplitude, from where the intensity slowly and constantly decreases until at around 3 kHz. There, at 3 kHz, the upflank of the mentioned peak begins. The relation of the partials in the spectrum seems to be rather constant over time, but I will have to prove that a bit later when I reduce the speed of the playback. All right, let me have a more detailed look at the low end. I use a low-pass filter to dim the frequencies above 250 Hz. So let me introduce the low-pass filter. Ah, yes. Well, yeah, I like this low end more or less as it is. Perhaps, oh well, it's loud enough. Perhaps it should be a bit more punchy, but I don't want to lose the peak at the high end either, and only a good deal deeper, I think, not at 4 kilohertz. So, meaning the low end as it is, plus high end but deeper. This means layering, definitely layering. I'll try the following. Layer 1, the original sound, but with the extreme low-pass filter as we have it now. Then I'll take the original without a low-pass filter and tune it down to get the peak where I want it to be. And this is going to be layer 2. Perhaps I will have to get rid of the lower end in this layer 2, because by tuning down, the lower end might get into wrong frequency regions. If the lower end of the resulting overall sound is still not punchy enough, I'll try adding a third layer. Yeah, perhaps this more gunshot-like recording number 26. We will see. But at first I want to know more about how the spectrum changes over time. Therefore I deactivate here this low-pass filter again. Let me do so. So you see it still, but it's deactivated. And I introduce this granular sound processor. I decrease the speed, the playback speed, without changing the frequencies, to about 5 or 6 or something. Let me... 5.4 is okay. I increase the density to maximum and decrease the space of the grains to minimum to get a smoother sound, at least a bit smoother. And now we see it nicely here in the spectrum that the development in time is not at all that constant, that smooth as it seemed to be at original speed. There are small dents and knolls and little valleys occurring and vanishing again, which is not at all a good thing for the initial punch, for the first blast. There shouldn't be, it should be really a punchy thing. But they are quite useful, I think, for the rumble after this first crash, after the first punch. And so we are talking about layer number 4, probably, which will contain the slowed down recording. The slowed down recording, and perhaps even going from the tuned down original and then slowing it down. Well, we will see. We will see. I should tell you more exactly what I want at all, what kind of sound I'm going for. Well, I don't want a fake earthquake sound that strives to sound like a real recorded earthquake. There are enough of these sounds on the internet. I want something with a more, well, musical ideology. What the is that? An earthquake with a musical ideology? Well, okay, let me explain. When the Czech composer Bedřich Smetana created his famous piece called Vltava, he didn't simply record the river Vltava. Okay, there wasn't the right equipment to do so in those days anyway. What he did was composing music that stood for the flow and development of the river. He made the river Vltava flow by his music representing the goings-on in real nature, by the goings-on in his music. I'm not composing music here in this video, but doing sound design. And I want to create an earthquake sound, not a musical theme, with this musical ideology in mind, a sound that represents the goings-on in a real earthquake, but in a more artful way, but also without being music, not even noise music or things like that. No, a sonic happening being close enough to the recording of a real earthquake, but defamiliarized enough to make you wonder if or if not it's real at the same time. And I want this sound as if heard from above, from the surface of the earth, not from inside the earth. Therefore the mentioned rumble, which shall represent the sounds things on the earth, not in it, make, when tortured by an earthquake. All right. I wanted to make that clear. Let's go and do the things I mentioned before now. And then we will see what further sound designing wizardry will be needed on top of this. All right, let me make it short now. This is not a tutorial about sound design after all. I did what I said some minutes ago, and I got a more than nice intermediate result. The graphic shows some details. In case you want to know more about what you see, and you will hear in a minute, or in a second, just visit my website or write me an email. For now, let's just listen to it. That's more or less what I wanted, the sonic event which was sounding in my head all the time. Not completely, though. Some fine-tuning will be needed. I'll change the length of the grains in my granular sound processor a bit, make them, I think, about 20% shorter. I'll modulate the density of the grains, and I will create a different delay room. For the granular manipulations, I'll probably use a different software, Xzone's Crusher X. But these further steps are going to be a matter in another video. Okay, back to hardware and back to our speakers. I want to show you something else before this first, still quite simple episode ends. I want to make a random rhythm generator now. The setup of the experiment is like you see in the graphic. I've electrically connected 4 nails to a copper strip of a Vero board and another 4 nails to another stripe on this board. The first 4 nails are connected to one pole of a battery, the other pair of nails are connected to a speaker. The second contact of the speaker is connected to the second pole of the battery. Always, when one or more of the first group of 4 nails touches one of the nails from the second group, the circuit closes and the speaker produces our well-known plops. I'm going to shake the mechanical construction with the nails so that diverse contacts are going to be randomly closed and opened. It's like 4 switches being randomly switched on and off. To make the sound a bit more remarkable, there is a mainspring from a big watch on the speaker, as well as our well-known napkin stand and the little pipe from a gas line. What I get are random rhythms of blobs, which shall serve as pattern examples for random percussion sequences, a process which I'm going to explain in a minute. But let's watch and listen to one of the experiments at first. Well, after cutting a suitable piece from the recording made with a piezo element on the speaker, this is the one which delivers the most remarkable peaks, I get this. Let me draft the further steps only draft. I take 2 envelope followers where I feed the recording in. From the envelope followers I trigger percussion modules, and adjusting different gains at the envelope followers I can trigger different instruments. Now I could go and quantize the whole thing to certain measures, bars and so on, but that's a topic in another video.
Well, that's it for today's video. This is the end of the first episode. Needless to say that all of the recorded sounds make great starting points for several granular experiments as well. Let me point something out again. We are just at the beginning of our journey into the land of hardware hacks, a journey that will lead us to making real and less experimental musical instruments, but will also surprise us and show musical aspects of things we would not have thought of. All right, I made this journey some time ago myself, and I must admit I was not always sufficiently patient. I skipped things and steps, and in the end it turned out that I had missed great experiences. And so I jumped back to the missed episodes. Okay, don't make the same mistake. And now let me only say, enjoy your day. your Rolf.